Hey, what's up, guys? Richard here, back with another episode of I Ching, Oracle the Cosmic Way, a revolutionary book, new version of I Ching. You know, if you're familiar with I Ching or human design, Gene Keys, any of that, you're probably familiar with the I Ching. But this is a totally new cosmic interpretation of all the hexagrams and their true meanings. And I think you can see that as we go through these hexagrams, how this really truly is the cosmic, the broadest possible meaning of all the hexagrams. And you can use these hexagrams here, cosmic hexagrams, in tandem with your cosmic human design chart, which you can find on www.cosmichumandesign.com. This book was instrumental in inspiring me to create that system. And yeah, you just come here and look up the video that goes with your personality sun. Can give you a lot of insight to your personality. Well, here we go with hexagram 23. Oh, this is a fun one. This is going to be a fun one. Splitting apart, mountain over the earth. The judgment, splitting apart. It does not further to go anywhere. The sage shows us here that splitting apart has two meanings. One, through following the false path of the ego, a person has split from his original nature and therefore from unity with the cosmos. Two, through splitting from this false path, he is able to reunite with his original nature and with the cosmos. And by the way, 99.999% of people in the world today, including myself, are under the influence of the ego, their ego, which is, this kind of false personality program that's been introjected to them during childhood, and that, separates you from your true original nature. And I believe the Cosmic Human Design chart can help us return to that true original nature through seeing it reflected in stars and on the chart, and kind of reawakens something inside of you, which, by the way, the original human design chart does not do. And I believe, in fact, that the original human design chart is in many ways describing the ego itself. Maybe that can be useful for you, but I don't necessarily want to know or study anything that's not my true self. And getting back to that. Anyways, it does not further want to go anywhere. It tells a person that while he is listening to the ego or has split from his true self, nothing fruitful can be done. All splitting apart that results in losing one's wholeness occurs through allowing the activity of the ego. This activity of the ego, with its attachments to wanting, wondering, and worrying, begins when a person first awakens from sleep. It engages his inner hearing by suggesting tasks, doubts, fear of guilt, and fears of the unknown. When the person entertains what the ego proposes, he immediately loses his inner center to the ego, which then takes over the center of his thinking consciousness to speak as I or you or we, as in I should, you must, we ought, etc. How many times do you hear those phrases going off in your head, especially when you wake up in the morning? The result is the generation of ego emotions, which then take over the center of his feeling consciousness in the heart. Among these ego emotions are envy, jealousy, hatred, revenge, grief, pity, feelings of blame, and self-pity. While anger is a natural emotion in response to an encroachment or mistreatment, the ego seizes it and brandishes it with a vengeance as the sword of self-righteousness. Splitting apart is the result of an inner conflict that separates a person from his inner truth. This separation is caused by a fundamental doubt put forth by the ego, which causes the person to doubt what his inner truth tells him. The doubt can be that he is insufficient in himself, born lacking to judge the truth of a matter, that no invisible source of help exists for him, that no matter how hard or sincerely he tries, he will never succeed, that the world, the cosmos, is a fundamentally unfriendly place, that life is unfair. Splitting apart within is characterized by one negative thought following another. The person may receive this hexagram when, as a consequence of a parade of such negative thoughts, he is tempted to give up on freeing his true self or has already done so. Another splitting activity of the ego consists in analyzing a thing through a thinking that is divorced from feeling. Such thinking reduces everything to mechanistic terms, which deny the consciousness and dignity that exists in all things. In doing this, he creates a fate for himself. This practice comes from the scientific belief that to understand a thing's nature, it is necessary to take it apart. It misses the fundamental truth that all things are compressed consciousness that can be understood only through a thinking that is based on feeling. Feelings exist in wavelengths that can be perceived by the combination of all our senses. The mechanical approach, however, relies mostly on seeing, so that the combination of senses needed to perceive a thing in its wholeness does not occur. Furthermore, the distortions in perception created by only relying on seeing are then projected upon the thing seen, causing that thing to react in the manner expected. Such an approach splits the person from the inner truth of the situation. The beliefs of the collective ego are all based on this kind of splitting things apart in order to fit them into its idea that the universe is based on a hierarchical order. Here we go again, hierarchical order that puts humans, of course, in the center and certain people at the top of that order. This view was transferred to human nature by splitting it into mind and body, or mind, body, and soul, with mind and soul hierarchically established over the body. This hierarchical view causes some body parts to be seen as superior to others, as when the large brain is seen as superior to the midbrain and the brainstem, and the brain in general is seen as superior to the rest of the body. Other divisions place humans over other life forms, and those life forms over the apparently inert things. All of these ideas lead to the splitting apart of the wholeness of things that brings damage to the harmony of the whole. The sage, in pointing to this hexagram, is indicating that the situation at hand involves such a splitting apart due to one or more mistaken ideas. The only remedy that will return the person and the situation to wholeness is his ridding himself of these mistaken ideas. The cosmos operates through the harmonizing and unifying action of Qi energy. However, when Qi, which consists of the dark and the light, called yin and yang in Chinese, is divided into two separate forces, with yang made superior to yin and seen as representing the good, and yin representing what is inferior and evil, nature is slandered. The unity of yin-yang is thus broken up and their functions are misunderstood. This splitting activity was introduced by the yin-yang school circa 400 BC. Yang and yin, which originally stood for the light and the dark, as complementary forces, were made to represent categories of opposites: good versus evil, strong versus weak, male versus female, etc., with all the implications of good and evil accompanying each. Nothing in the cosmic order exists as opposites. Defining things in terms of opposites denies the essential harmony of nature that shows itself in the principle of attraction that is otherwise implied throughout the I Ching. This harmony is also implied in its teaching that when a person is in harmony with his true nature, he is within the cosmic unity. Splitting apart can also refer to the damaging effects to the functioning of a thing brought about by defining that thing's nature falsely. This happens, for example, when we say he is a bad boy, implying that his nature is bad. Or when we say that is a dangerous animal. Thoughts that do not correspond to a thing's nature harm that thing, even going so far as to turn it from being harmless to being harmful. Particularly destructive to large segments of nature is the idea that humans are special over all of nature and the things in it. The person who carelessly says such things splits apart from his own true nature. The person who, such effects occur because everything in the cosmos is compressed consciousness, and everything in the cosmos is affected by consciousness. As the ancient Chinese said metaphorically, the slightest movement of the hand affects everything to the end of the universe. Splitting apart also refers to illnesses that are caused by mistaken beliefs stored in the psyche, which have created holes in the person's original wholeness. If a person has received this hexagram in regard to illness, it counsels him to seek out and deprogram the particular ideas and beliefs that are his cause. Line 1, the leg of the bed is split. Those who persevere are destroyed. Misfortune. The bed mentioned here is a metaphor for a person's resting place. The cosmic meaning of the resting place is the harmony a person feels when he is connected with the cosmic whole. The leg stands for the primary support for the resting place. This primary support is chi energy in its undivided form as it flows from the cosmos to the true self, harmonizing and unifying us. To be effective, chi energy in its two aspects of the dark and the light needs to remain undivided. Receiving this line indicates that it's become split through an attack in the form of a mistaken idea about our true nature. Among such mistaken ideas are that our animal nature is the source of evil and that we are guilty for having an animal nature. Labeling one part of our nature as lower and evil and the other part as higher and good is itself the source of evil, because in demonizing a part of ourselves, the demonized part becomes perverted. The two aspects of chi, as it were, are put in a gladiator's ring and made to fight each other. When this line refers to illness, the resting place has become the person's sickbed, with the leg referring to the false premise the person has accepted about his true nature. The ego would attribute the illness to external causes or to something being wrong with the body itself. The sage points to susceptibility itself as the cause. Susceptibility is caused by the presence of mistaken ideas in the psyche, which open the door to the illness. Illness is the body's reaction to various spells and poison arrows that have wounded or blocked its natural defenses, or else have damaged the will. A person also receives this line when the ego has caused him to doubt his purpose in life, or when he has disbelieved the sage because he has misunderstood what it was saying, or when he has drawn false conclusions by only looking at the appearance of things. These include false notions about the nature of love, of life, and of illness. One of these false conclusions is the idea that life is suffering. Spoken as an absolute truth, each setback or adversity is then read as living proof of that conclusion, projecting a dark view onto life. Such a view then insidiously creates that person's parallel reality. All these negative perceptions come from the ego, which phrases events in terms of whether or not they promote progress towards its goals. Its goals are linked to the perfection of a self-image. Under its influence, a person is led to successively deeper levels of despair, for the ego causes him to make the very missteps that bring about his failures and misfortunes. Although these failures are caused by the ego, it is the ego which then blames the person for his incompetence. It says, if only you had done what I said. Through listening to this blame, the person may suffer a progressive loss of will to live, which may lead him to severe illness or even self-destruction. This is the meaning of the phrase, those who persevere are destroyed, misfortune, meaning those who persevere in listening to the ego. Clearly, the person needs to rally his will to say the inner no to the ego, to its incessant blame, and to its demonic thoughts about life. Only when he recognizes that the ego is his true enemy and a parasite in his psyche can he muster the will to free himself of it. The self-destruction which the ego promotes when it does not get its way amounts to a command to the body consciousness to die, which the body consciousness will do if the command is not resisted. It is also essential for the person to recognize that the ego's success in influencing him lies in its making him think that it and he are one and the same. Saying the inner no to the ego's claim of being the self is the first step in splitting from the ego. This inner no deprives the ego of its power. It is also important when a person is under the influence of the ego that he asks the sage for help. In order to regain leadership of himself, the person needs to recognize that any remedies or solutions offered by the ego to balance elements within himself only keep the ego in control, as in the end, they only divert him from ridding himself of the mistaken idea. It's all about the mistaken ideas, guys. All about the mistaken ideas. And I know it might be tough to give up a mistaken idea. You might not even know it's a mistaken idea. That's where the I Ching comes in, because it can show you the specific mistaken belief, the specific words and phrases that form that belief. And then you can say the inner no to them. That's why I Ching is so important for us here. It's a cosmic gift for us. The ego is the origin of the idea that opposites need to be balanced. It is among its sleight of hand tricks to first divide things into opposites, and then to say opposites need to be balanced. An example is the opposition the ego has created between the mind and the body by saying that they are separate things that need to be balanced or integrated. In the cosmic order, harmony is the absence of opposites. When a person takes away the mistaken belief that mind and body are in opposition, he discovers that nothing needs to be reconciled, balanced, or integrated. For wholeness to be restored, only the belief that splits it into parts needs to be taken away. Nothing needs to be added. Trying to balance opposites requires constant effort, as if one is walking a tightrope. Trying to reconcile and integrate opposites leaves untouched and active those beliefs upon which the system of opposites depends for its existence. Ooh. Line 2. The bed is split at the edge. Those who persevere are destroyed. Misfortune. Here, the edge of the bed refers to the bodily aspect of a person's wholeness. The line refers to a person who has accepted the idea that humans are divided into mind, body, and soul, and that his body is the cause of original fault, sin, or guilt. As a consequence, he also sees his bodily needs as standing in the way of developing his soul. Since the splitting of himself into competing parts negatively impacts his body, continuing to allow this belief will destroy him from within. This problem, which is easily observed in the myths of the collective ego, has been transferred into the realms of the natural, social, and medical sciences. That's how the collective ego operates. That's how our whole society has operated for millennia. This hierarchical order, false order. The experience of life as suffering is one of the consequences of this mistaken belief. Supporting beliefs are: it is God's condemnation of humans that causes illness and plagues. The drives of the id threaten the balance of the personality, from Freud. You can alleviate suffering, but you can't get rid of it altogether. That's a false belief. And true love does not exist. That's a false belief. Ridding oneself of these mischievous seed phrases requires that one first ask the sage to help find and free oneself of the guardian phrases that protect and keep the others in place. Guardian phrases are rationales created by the collective ego to perpetuate the beliefs that keep it in power. Their function is to maintain the feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and intimidation that block the individual from asking the cosmos for help. Examples of phrases such as, following one's inner truth does no good. That's the way it is, instilling hopelessness. These are the beliefs of your forefathers, implying that following your inner truth will be disloyal to your family or culture or heritage. It won't. Who are you to question the wisdom of the ancients, implying that your inner truth is not valid or that you need to be authorized by outside authorities? There's a penalty for going against the system, implying threat. Questioning just leads to trouble, a threat. Do you want to upset the whole system? The threat of being a social reject. Don't rock the boat in which you're setting another threat with an appeal to self-interest. Things are this way for a reason, implying you're dumb. And you will get a lot farther if you don't go against the system, promising a reward for not questioning. That's what's going on, guys. That's what's going on. Line 3, he splits with them, no blame. He splits with them refers to a person who contemplates splitting from the mistaken beliefs mentioned in lines 1 and 2 and from their guardian phrases. Once he has freed himself from the guardian phrases mentioned in line 2, the collective ego as a last-inch measure will try to make him feel guilty for wanting to abandon the beliefs of his forefathers, social group, etc. Guilt is the main means by which the collective ego tries to reinstall its program in the psyche. If the person is to free himself from any of the mistaken ideas mentioned above, he must first free himself from the idea of guilt, because it has no cosmic basis. Guilt is purely an invention of the collective ego to serve its purposes of maintaining control over the individual. No blame reassures the person that there's no cosmic blame for following his inner truth or for ridding himself of those beliefs that have been instilled through fear, intimidation, flattery, promise of gain, etc. And that, in fact, it is his cosmic duty to do so. This line further counsels him to ask in a short meditation for help to be freed from the images he has that are associated with guilt. This line also refers to a person who splits from using power to correct wrongs and instead employs the inner know, thus engaging the helpers of the invisible world. Line 4, the bed is split up to the skin, misfortune. The sick bed that is split up to the skin refers to ancient beds which are made of skin stretched on a frame with legs. Here, a person splitting from his true nature has proceeded even further than the lines 1 and 2, because the appropriate interaction recommended in line 3 has not been taken. As a consequence, he has succumbed to guilt, allowing the false program to be reinstalled in the psyche and the problems he was having to be renewed. Another misfortune is that the guilt has imprisoned his helper of protection and hampered the sage's ability to help him. Nevertheless, it is still possible to correct the situation if he will ask the sage to help rid him of the guilt spell. The progressive splitting of the bed can also refer to a fate, which is progressing towards its climax and denouement. The line informs a person that he need not live with this fate until it burns itself out. If he will submit to the guidance of the sage, he can rid himself of its causes, which may be in the form of mistaken ideas or projections, spells, or poison arrows put on him from outside. This line can also refer to the person who believes his fate is determined by an astrological constellation, and that he must wait until the stars or planets change their alignment before things get better. The misfortune is that he puts his life on hold and turns things over to time or the stars to straighten things out. All beliefs that see life as subject to a set of mechanical principles lead to misfortune. And just to be clear, I don't believe this applies to cosmic human design because, it's not, the chart is not determining your fate. It's a tool to help you reconnect with your true nature, to see it there in the chart, and from that to get a better idea about where your true nature really is. I'm not saying the true nature is in the chart, it's in you, and the chart is simply a clue, like a navigation matrix to help you get back to the cosmos, to the cosmic way, which is the way everyone is ultimately destined to live in one day. Absolutely. Line 5, a shoal of fishes, everything acts to further. Favor comes through the court ladies. The shoal of fishes is a metaphor for the cosmic consciousness as it swims away from what is disharmonious and towards what is harmonious. The shoal of fishes also describes the helpers and their way of relating to where we are within ourselves. So long as we remain connected with the collective ego, its mistaken beliefs and rationales, they turn away. When we choose to follow our inner truth and respond to our inner feelings, they turn and come swiftly to help. Then everything acts to further. Favor comes through the court ladies refers to a person who is tempted to throw away his dignity to gain success, which is implied by gaining access to the emperor through the women of the court. The presence of the court ladies in the line may indicate a person's indecision as to whether he should follow convention or his inner truth. This indecision is experienced as the shoal of fishes, the helpers moving away when he follows convention and towards him, bringing relief when he follows his inner truth. Line 6, there's a large fruit still uneaten. The superior man receives the carriage. The house of the inferior man is split apart. The large fruit still uneaten can refer either to a fate or a destiny. When it refers to destiny, it is the true self that receives a carriage, meaning it is reunited with the cosmic whole. The carriage refers to the chi energy, which in line 1 was split and engaged in gladiatorial combat. Here it is no longer split and therefore is able to carry the true self forward on the path of his destiny. This line can also refer to the person who has not freed himself from the mistaken beliefs mentioned in lines 1 and 2. In this case, the superior man is one who believes himself impervious to fate and holds to the delusions promoted by the collective ego that his real life will occur in the afterlife when he is freed of a body. In this meaning, the carriage is the carriage of fate. When this line refers to fate, it can indicate an illness caused by the person's belief that his soul is a temporary inhabitant of his body, and his body is separate from him. This view creates blockages in the flow of chi, life force, through his body, creating illness. If he treats his body as merely a set of mechanics, his illness will transfer from one locus to another, gradually leading to his death. If he rids himself of these mistaken beliefs, which slander his body and prevent him from living fully in it, he will free his self-healing abilities and restore the full flow of Qi. When this line refers to relationships, the large fruit can be a metaphor for the success that comes when a person breaks away from a relationship that has failed through exceeding the limits of common sense. The superior man receives the carriage can refer to another relationship that will come along, which will be truly fulfilling. The house of the inferior man is split apart can refer to the partner who has failed to allow himself to participate fully in the love relationship. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And man, I'm having a blast going through this Cosmic I Ching, guys. I hope you are too. Leave comments down below about what you think about this extremely enlightening book. It's absolutely insane. And I'll see you guys in the next one.